The history of Manchester United is like no other football club. Although to many the history begins with the Busby Babes and the tragedy of the Munich air disaster, and the story of how the club rose from the ashes to win the European Cup in 1968, and later became the force that it is today. But Manchester United is a club that has risen from the ashes on more than one occasion. After the war, Gibson appointed Matt Busby as manager and began to rebuild Old Trafford. Players Johnny Carey and Jack Rowley were notable names that returned after the war, and Busby would also be able to utilise the Manchester United Junior Athletic Club to strengthen the team further. In the 2 years after the resumption of the Football League, United had finished as runners-up on both occasions. And in 1948, they also fought their way through to Wembley to reach the FA Cup final. There was, however, to be no fairy tale appearance for James Gibson, as just before the final he was struck down by a stroke. He would not be well enough to make the long journey down to London. In a touching gesture, after a memorable 4-2 victory on their journey back home to Manchester, the team made a detour to Hale Barnes. This would be the same place that Walter Crickmer had visited 17 years before, only this time the players presented James Gibson with the FA Cup, and the trophy remained locked in the family wardrobe throughout the season.
My uncle had a stroke. We went to see him, but before going in to see him, we were taken into another bedroom, and my aunt opened the wardrobe doors and took out this cup, all wrapped in cloth, and she undid it, and it was the FA Cup, and that was quite something.
Ever since I've known Alan, that it's been a big part of our lives.
And why is it important?
Why is it important? Because what that man did was just unbelievable. I think it was just wonderful what he did, and his wife, and his son continued to do everything for United. For Alan Gibson, really that was his life, was United.
One of the most unsung heroes in the Manchester United story is that of Alan Gibson, who worked diligently alongside his father during his time at United. And from 1948 and throughout the whole of his adult life, he served the club as director, vice chairman and vice president.
The sad part of my career here was when I was told I wasn't going to be manager anymore, and in fact Alan Gibson was in tears when he saw me at the board meeting, and he was absolutely wonderful. I don't suppose there's been a gentleman like him. And gentleman was the word that sums him up, because he was so kind. He was a kind man. He was a real gentle guy, and he hadn't been in great health, but he made time for us to come and see us, because normally footballers don't mix with directors, but this was a bit different. We had the directors on the coach sometimes, and he was a special one, and we always remember that his family were the ones who did save Manchester United in those days in the 30s.
United returned home to Old Trafford on the 24th of August 1949, and after 2 seasons as runners-up in the league in 1951-52, they won their first league title in 40 years. James Gibson suffered another stroke on September 1951 and would not see the team win the league title. But he left the club in fantastic shape, and the mantle was passed to his son Alan and wife Lillian. In the years to come, the arrival of the Busby Babes was a sight to behold, winning the FA Youth Cup in 1953 and another 2 league titles in 1955-56 and 1956-57. Much has already been written about the Munich air disaster, and its tragedy was felt by many, both in Manchester and across the world. For Alan Gibson, a strange twist of fate and a broken ankle led to him not being able to take his usual seat alongside the team for the trip to Belgrade that fateful night. Among the heroes that died that day was long-serving club secretary Walter Crickmer, whose visit to James Gibson 27 years earlier had saved the club.
If he hadn't have fallen over and broken his ankle, he would have been leading that tour. And Walter Crickmer normally didn't go on the tours, but that one he went on, and unfortunately got killed. But I was looking at the photographs and pictures in the Munich tunnel, and there's a newspaper picture of my cousin who left hospital in pyjamas, dressing gown, with his foot on plaster, on crutches, going to attend a board meeting to try to sort problems out about what they should do and what's going to happen immediately after the Munich crash.
We were football through and through, and it was Alan who impressed most people with his shyness, his quietness. He was an unassuming guy, and well, I'll always remember him being in tears when I was nearly in tears as well.
Lillian Gibson retired to Bournemouth, but remained a major shareholder until she died in 1971. After she died, son Alan remained as a director of the club, but the family had had to sell many of its shares, partly due to death duties. After Lillian's death, the Gibson majority share ownership passed to the board to ensure that the club had a sound financial footing. And over the years, the Gibson shares diminished as football became more commercial. Later, Alan would remain a key figure at Old Trafford and become the club's vice-chairman and later vice-president. As vice-president, Alan Gibson would enjoy many of the club's future successes until he died in 1995.
Being one of the family members, do you sometimes feel that you're on a one-man crusade to keep the memory of your uncle alive?
Possibly, possibly, but that doesn't matter. I'm not alone. I've got a wife and I've got a son, and the rest of the family support us. Yes, I think it's very important, and I do feel that if I don't make a stand now and do something now, then the history will be forgotten, because I know more what went on than anybody else now almost living.
No problem. Yeah, so a great man.
I know it's better than you, should not me to do it.
In relation with James Gibson, he saved the club from bankruptcy in 1931. He's the man that invited Matt Busby to this ground as well, from the glory days just after the war. Matt Busby used to play for City, Manchester City, and then he went to Liverpool. Liverpool asked him after the war to come back and to be their manager, but he liked it in Manchester, but he came to this ground instead. We had a bomb site then, but Mr Gibson invited him here, and amazing considering what's come from that. So all this comes from this family.
Whenever Alan and his family are in Manchester, they always visit the grave in Hill Cemetery, where Uncle Jim, Auntie Lillian and Cousin Alan are all buried. And it is touching to see the pride that Alan and his family have in their family roots. But it is just one wish that the family has, and that is that the name James W. Gibson will forever be remembered as the man who saved United.
And that's his legacy, is this here, what we see around us. Because without that rebuilding process, the club wouldn't be here. He's rebuilt the club twice. Taken, not only in 31, but he rebuilt it in 41, or from 41 after the bombing. And you see the Alex Ferguson stand over there. Maybe this stand here above us should be called the James W. Gibson stand for what he achieved for this club and this community. I think that would be a fitting tribute to the man.
So here we are, yes. United v Liverpool, and you're at the game. Yes. Tell us what it's like to be back at Old Trafford.
Oh, it's wonderful, absolutely wonderful. It's like coming home.
Now, when you look at this gigantic stadium behind you, what do you think Uncle Jim would think?
It'd be over the moon. That would be his dream.
No. I did have a great